Good morning. We'll call the Board Governance Committee to order. And why don't we start with the roll call?
Mr. Rosensteel? Ms. Vargas? Ms. Hendricks? And Mr. Boykin for the State Treasurer? Chairperson Yee, you have a quorum.
Thank you very much. Okay. Our first item is approval of the committee agenda and work plan. Any comments on that?
Move approval.
Okay. We have a motion to approve, second, without objection. Okay, that item is approved. I know we have a second action item on board accountability and compliance, but this is really more of an update, I believe. Yes, Brian?
Yes, I think it was originally reflected as an action item when we were going to make some changes to the board policy manual, but you already made those.
Okay.
So instead it's an update.
Could you speak right into the microphone?
Oh, I'm sorry. Instead it's an update from Ms. Lukens on where we are at this point.
Very good. Okay. Good morning, Jill.
Morning. So the at the last meeting, I think one of the requests from the committee was that we put together some procedures or some sort of guidance as to when the annual certifications and all the annual forms that the committee and board members have to sign and fill out, how that process is, and so that there's much more understanding about all of that. So we've been working with the executive office with Danielle Fong. She put together some written procedures. And so it'll be a little bit more detailed as to how that process is facilitated, how the forms are sent to you as board members, and how they're collected, and all the timelines associated with that. So we're just finalizing that and formatting it, and then what we'll do is upload that to the board website. And I think as part of the work plan for next year, we're going to discuss some revisions maybe to the board website. Just the way it's organized. I think there's a section called disclosures, and we might want to amend that and change it to compliance, and then we'll put these sorts of things under that tab so that it's easier to find.
Great. Thank you, Jill. Really appreciate all the work that's going into this, and obviously I take my role very seriously in this committee in terms of board compliance. So we want to be sure that we have an easy way to really track all of that. Comments by members of the committee? No?
I'll work on that.
Right. I think that will be coming sometime in the future. Okay, very good. Thank you. Our next item is the review of the 2016-17 proposed work plan, which you have in front of you. And let me just give a little bit of context, and then maybe have Brian walk us through that. There's been a lot of interest, I think, by members of this committee and certainly by the board with respect to receiving ongoing board education. And I know that some members had expressed specific topics as we've had different avenues of board input, including our board self-evaluation. So there are some items that are proposed with respect to board education. And I just want to make a comment with respect to the facilitated workshop on risk and compliance. The thought here, and particularly to Paul, with respect to your committee, is to really coordinate with your committee, because I think the whole notion of compliance expands more broadly than the jurisdiction of the ARM committee. And so we will put together an agenda that reflects compliance in a much broader sense that affects the entire organization, but obviously a focus on board responsibility in all those areas. Okay. Comments? Okay. Brian, do you want to walk through the plan?
Yes, so I think one of the things that we're trying to accomplish in your education program is twofold. One is we want to make clear that we're providing opportunities for board members to get education, not just externally but internally. So, for example, if you're putting together your education completion at the end of the year, you've had fiduciary training. I know Jill is putting together ethics training videos. That those would be part of your curriculum, and so we would make sure that we have system offered training, or CalSTRS offered training to help you complete that complaint training or education criteria that you've adopted. Jim, what you want to add to that?
No, I mean, there's other portions of that.
Okay, and so one of the things we're going to educate is on education. So as Amy McDuffie has suggested, we're talking about board education. So let's bring in some expertise and have a workshop on what are the trends, what are the expectations for board members as far as education. And so I think that's the purpose of the very first board education item, is to actually cover board education and what sort of standards are in the industry. So that's for the November meeting. Under board compliance, of course, we have the continuing work on the organization of reports. I think investments is going to do some heavy lifting on that. And then the board accountability and compliance issue. You want to talk about that one?
Sure. So previously, or in the past, there have been some guide or tip sheets for board members as far as certain frequently encountered issues such as seminars or conferences or where you make a speech somewhere, what is considered a gift, what is not, and all of the rules, FPPC regulations and rules that go along with that, and the reporting requirements on your Form 700. So what we're going to do is work on preparing some updated guideline sheets, and again, that would get posted under that compliance section on the board website, just so that there's some easy reference on some fairly frequently encountered issues that the board comes up against. And again, I think that item was intended to also include maybe some small revisions to the board website, as I indicated.
David, you had a question?
Yes, please. I just erased it. I'm having issues this morning for whatever reason. So I guess I would ask that when we take a look at the board education piece, that we also include the budget that we've allotted ourselves for that. We came pretty close to exhausting our funds last year. Do we need to change the limit? I think it's the first time we've ever come close. Isn't that true, Jack?
There's one other year. But yeah.
Okay. So in that discussion, we can talk about, is it better to try to bring things in-house and to send a lot of us, I don't want to say out in the world. And then also, Jill, when we're talking about board members going out, and this is something Jack and I've talked about before, is there a benefit to having a disclaimer? I know when we go to various conferences, when someone from an agency is speaking, they say the views expressed are entirely my own and not those of
Counselor staff person.
So is there, as we perhaps start to do more presentations, I know I've done presentations for retiree groups, I know Harry and Sharon have also been speaking, would it benefit us having a disclaimer? And if you could just think about that in that whole compliance piece, I'd appreciate it.
That's a great idea. We did have one. It's probably receded into the mist of time at some point. So yes, we will definitely take a look at that and provide some
Great suggestion.
Thanks.
standard language.
Okay, other comments on the, Brian, did you want to continue on the work plan? Oh, Sharon. Oops, I'm sorry. Harry first.
Thanks, Madam Chair. So I think it's great that we begin to look at some of the education opportunities that we might be able to do internally at this committee level. I think it just is maybe the next logical step for what we've done to help educate, what the system does to support board members that seek additional education. And there's just, I think, potentially a lot of value because you have everyone here. We have our own facility. We can host folks. We can structure it in the format that we want. We can really do something if we think this through well. I think we can take our education component to the next level, and I'd be happy, Madam Chair, to contribute some ideas and stuff offline to you and to staff as to potential topics that we can address. the same time, I think there are opportunities that cannot be replicated here, that can only be replicated by being out in the field and literally in the world, where we have the opportunity to get exposure to leading thinkers in finance, policy, cutting-edge issues that are affecting institutional investors, and those opportunities are invaluable. The flow of information, the ability to build relationships with other trustees and decision makers has certainly expanded my horizons, and I think have helped enhance my ability to be effective here at the board. And I think the stakeholders that have selected me to represent them on this board have that expectation that I continue to grow, and so as to be a more effective board member. Having said that, I know there's a limited amount of time that we all have, and travel is so I think we do a good job in selecting where we have opportunities to go to. Very few of the events that I've gone to have been soft events. They're usually pretty intense. And you can feel a little inadequate at times, or you're like, wow, really? Feeling a little inadequate here right now. But all kidding aside, the education, we can take our education of our own board and our continued pursuit of excellence to the next level by bringing some stuff in-house, and I look forward to contributing to some ideas as to what those can be, and individuals that can help structure. We can almost have like our own school, and we can actually do something that's maybe cutting edge for trustees and trustee leadership here at Cal STIRS, if we really got creative about it. So,
Yeah, good idea.
thanks.
Thank you, Harry. Sharon?
Well, I was just going to say similar things, so I won't be redundant. I think one of the other things I was going to comment on with board education is I think there's a lot of value in doing some things together. I know there's rules about how many trustees can be certain places doing certain things, but I know when Harry and I were at Rotman, I know Joy and Paul going to Rotman, and I do think to me, as I think we demonstrated yesterday, it's a steep learning curve to be a board, and I feel like it's continually, I just feel like my skill set just keeps getting beefed up every meeting that we have in terms of stuff that I'm learning and how I'm growing, and in leadership, but also understanding the issues that face a large institutional investor like ourselves. So, as I guess I also wanted to put in a plug for just doing some things, together or with another trustee, because I think there's a way that when we go places and learn things, we bring it back here, and hopefully it makes it a better experience. And I can't help myself, Jill, but I have seen that Form 700 app, and I wondered if that's something. Have you seen it and used it?
Well, we do have our automated system now,
Okay.
so that definitely
could-
has increased the ease of filling out the forms. And going forward,
Okay.
for example, this year it was the first year board members use the e-disclosures system. But going forward, your last year's forms will be in there. So there's a lot of things that will auto load into your Form 700, so that you won't have to fill out those things again.
If there's a way, I know some of us do more traveling or things than others, but for me, I just know that as soon as I go somewhere and come back, it's hard enough just getting my receipts in, and and I use my phone for everything now, like I think a lot of people do. It would be, and not that we have to create something, but if we can if there's something that, if
Just a
there's some way
tracking
technology with our phone or something could help us in making sure that we're compliant as board members, if there's just an easy way to do that, as part of our board education in November or whenever you think it's appropriate. I just know for me, that would be of great help, because I find myself, I really want to be compliant, and you read the newspaper and you don't want to be one of those board members that forget something or isn't compliant, obviously. But if there's some tools or resources that we could be made aware of that make that process easier
Yeah,
to be
we'll look
compliant.
into that. I know not too long ago, I don't know if it's been revised since, but I believe the app or the that was from the FPPC was not compatible with iPhones, or there was some issue there. Yeah.
Just
Okay.
share anything that's cutting edge that would make it easier for us. 'Cause,
What world were they in?
I know.
thanks, Jill.
Thank you. Great. Brian, you want to continue?
So the April we discussed briefly. So first we information review of the board education program. We just assume that there'll be more work to be done coming out of the November meeting. There'll probably be some action items or suggestions on policy. So we want to keep that item throughout the year as we learn more and as we take direction from the chair and the committee. And then the facilitated educational workshop, that was the piece that Controller Yee mentioned, was about putting together something on a broad compliance platform, including board compliance. And we thought that would, when we work together, try to identify a speaker or speakers for that. And then again, down on the bottom continues the yeoman's work of trying to organize the organization of reports to the board. We just get updates as it continues along. I think all the committees are working on it.
There will be an item that will need to be added, excuse me, for the full board, because I believe there's, a handful of reports that go to the full board that need to be evaluated. So that will be an item on the full board agenda coming up.
And then into June, I think, again, continuing the trend, I think we will, I think over the next couple of months, we'll work with the chair and the committee to come up with some other educational opportunity for the June meeting as well. And then I think, and then we'll be back to looking at the work plan. I'm sure there'll probably be other items that come up during the year, but that's the basic outline.
Okay. Thank you, Brian. One thing I wanted to add, because following on the April workshop we had, where we delved into the relationship, the board's working relationship with consultants, I want to also be sure that we allow for some forum for any follow-up after I hear from some experts in this area. So I know Harry, we've engaged in a bit of a conversation, but we'll figure out what that should look like coming back, probably within one of the committees, investment committee. Yeah.
Now wait in there, Madam
Yes,
Chair.
of course.
To that point, and just to expand a little bit, I do think it might be helpful during next year through this committee if we actually had some independent set of eyes to look at the types of consultants that we have advising us, and whether or not they are the appropriate ones, and are there other consultant relationships with boards in similar institutions. In other words, just refresh, are these the right types of relationships, and is this the appropriate allocation of resources to support the work of the board? There are a myriad of topics that are relevant in today's world that weren't relevant a decade ago. And I think an independent review of the types of board consultant relationships that we've had in the past, who we are collectively now, and what we're aspiring to do. Could we benefit from a reorganization or an additional independent consulting view on specific topics? So I think that would be appropriate for this committee. So if it's okay, I think it's a relatively minor item to put on the work plan for next year. I think we can accomplish that.
We'll do that. I think given the timeline, we should be able to bring something back in the fall to at least begin the conversation about how we have that assessment done, but just to gather up all of the issues that we would want to have an independent eye on. Going forward.
We'll work with your board consultant.
That's Mr.
governance-
Duffy?
Yes.
Yeah.
On that request, and then come back to you with some ideas of how we can get that done.
Thank you, Madam
Harry.
Chair.
Thank you. Okay. Other comments? Yes. Sharon.
I just wanted to throw it in there, since Betty, you weren't here yesterday, we had discussed, there had been a conversation about RMS and having a second set of eyes, so I guess since Amy's not here either, I just want to make sure that that's to me as an example, Harry, of maybe perhaps what we're talking about moving forward in terms of areas that we either might want an extra, set of eyes, and then areas where we might not need that anymore. So I guess I just wanted to provide that as an example moving forward for this next year, that we've had a conversation about that.
So just on that point,
Harry?
that specific suggestion, was direction yesterday, just for the RMS, for us to have PCA work with the staff to come up with an amendment to their current contract, so the PCA then would work with us as a board directly on the implementation of RMS and some of the issues that were raised yesterday, so that they're speaking directly to us.
Right.
So that was clear yesterday. So I don't want that to be
Okay.
pushed into
Okay.
a next year work plan.
All right.
This one topic I'm thinking, for
Right.
example, is the role of globalization and the impact of technology in the workforce, and how that might affect the global economy and growth going forward, and how we should be thinking about that as large institutional investors. There might be an economist or an academic or someone who has.
You're not talking about consultants, you're talking about education? Is that what-
Well, and ideally, the consultants would act as as a
Okay.
teacher to us.
I guess I think of a consultant, that's more of an ongoing relationship versus.
Could be.
Okay.
Could be.
I mean,
Okay.
I think that speaks to maybe expectations of
Yeah.
consultants in terms of
Yeah.
expertise as things evolve, so, yeah.
Okay.
I think, if I may, I
Right.
think another good example is to discuss whether or not a board should have an independent cybersecurity consultant.
Yeah, that's the topic I think of.
So I think I'm sure you were going there. So I think that those kind of timely topics as well. So see what the universe is out there, and get some best practice and some recommendations what other boards are doing. But I thought that was an example that you
Right, and
talked about.
I'm not looking to disrupt a budget. I think it can be done at a nominal cost, and we can do an analysis as to the value of getting additional insight. And it actually, they could, if it's done well, the expectations, they would actually work in an educational component independently, working with us.
Thank you. Other thoughts on this? Okay. We need this is an action item on the work plan, yes.
It's an action item to
Okay.
approve it as amended and move, and for presentation to the full board.
Yes, okay, very well. So thank you for the robust input on the work plan. With that, and seeing no other comments, is there a motion on the action plan, the work plan?
Move approval with the amendments, changes suggested.
Okay, a motion by Mr. Boykin to adopt the 2016-17 proposed work plan as discussed and amended. Second by Ms. Hendricks, without objection. The work plan is approved. Thank you, Brian and Jill. Okay, let's see, got the consent agenda, which is approval of the minutes. Let's see, that review of information requests, to that.
Would Mr. Keeley's request for the consultant, the specific topics, would that be an information request, or would that be included in the work plan?
I see that's in addition to the work plan.
Yeah.
That's,
Okay, then that was it.
thank you, Brady.
Okay, great.
Yeah, I mean, remember, we're going to bring the work plan back actually for real adoption in July. This is just general input for everyone to think about when the other board members are here as well.
Right.
And also, I know Amy's got that particular item on her radar screen, and if the board embraces Dana's suggestion for the February offsite, I think Amy even thought that might be a great time for you to have a more reflective time on an item like that than this kind of time.
That's good. Okay, great. Okay, the draft agenda for next committee meeting, I've had a chance to review that. Any comments?
It looks like that's still consistent with your work plan.
Yes. So too. Great. All right, seeing none, we'll offer an opportunity for statements from the public. Any member of the public wish to address the committee?
Ed Foley, CTA, NEA retired. Not to bring up an old subject. However, we are in the sixth year of not having a full board. My concern is in a little different light, in as much as the elected people that are on the board, I think, do an outstanding job of understanding what the issues are and so on. My basic concern is I don't know how much are you as board members that are elected are in touch with the people that elected you. In other words, do you have a budget that allows you to go and meet with constituency groups that elected you? I mean, you could be as knowledgeable as anything, but if you don't know what the grassroots is going through, or you've missed something because of your experiences, I think the governance committee should start looking at how can we get our elected board members and hopefully our appointed retiree board member at some point out there meeting with constituents. Because I'll tell you, when you come back to this meeting, you have maybe the experts telling you what to do or informing you what should be done. But I'll tell you, it's a different feeling when you know what's going on out there in the field. Just a suggestion. Thank you.
Thank you, Ed.
Madam Chair.
Yes, Mayor.
I know it's not on the agenda, so I don't want to go outside of the bounds of I'll take a little risk here this morning. Mr. Foley speaks to a point that it really, he's speaking to a few of us on the board.
Yeah.
And I couldn't agree with him more. We're all here we get here by different roads. But three of us are put here because members of the system have entrusted us and have cast a vote for us to represent them on the system. And one of the best things that happened to me a few years ago was I moved away from being the president of the union and I went back to Santa Monica High School, and I work there now in the capacity of a mentor working with, my point is I'm back working directly with teachers and students. And it reminds me on a daily basis as to who and why I'm here. And I think he makes an excellent point. Trustees that I've spoken to and have met from across the globe, Europe in particular, and Canada, the elected trustees spend considerably more time than we do in front of the constituents. So I think it's worth looking at and exploring. A couple of months ago, I had a chance to speak with the retired teachers from the NEA in San Diego. It was a remarkable experience because in front of me were 500 retired teachers. 80% of them were women. They're in their 70s and they're living on their retirement that they've earned. That, more than anything else that I hear from people that I respect and really like here in this system, from consultants, advisors, finance people, all wonderful. But in a room of 500 teachers who are dependent upon a pension of $5,000 a month, it rings home to me why I'm doing what I'm doing and the importance of what I do. So I think Mr. Foley raises a good point. We're working with Ed's team, and we've already begun a conversation, and next year we're looking to do a pilot where some of us are out more with the stakeholders that have elected us. I think my own experience is in life, if I get too far removed from that which is most important to me and the people that have entrusted me, that's really not a good thing. So I thank you for raising that, Ed. Appreciate it. We thought you were going to talk about something else, but I didn't quite make a bet with Grant, but had I did it, I would have lost.
Thank you, Harry. Mr. Boykin.
I wouldn't have taken that bet. Mr. Foley, if it gives you any comfort, in addition to the three elected folks, as a representative of an ex officio member, I can say that active and retired members are not shy about contacting our office, so it's hard for us to come into a meeting without having their concerns in our minds.
Yeah. Thank you. Sharon?
And I just, again, Ed, I always appreciate when you come up to the microphone and share. And it's always great to have stakeholders and teachers come to our meetings and express opinions, because I think it's so important that you see the work that we do. But I will say, I've been dragging Ed around to a bunch of different community colleges. Peter from Santa Monica, we just spoke at Santa Monica College. Actually, Harry joined us a couple of weeks ago. And I think I think to your point, I think it's really important that we hear kind of at the sort of grassroots level. And honestly, I'm shocked. I'm always shocked when I speak to a group, and Eden can attest to this, and we kind of ask, especially part-time faculty, do you know what your retirement, do you know what system you're in? And they'll be like, I have no idea. Am I in Social Security? Am I in PARS? Am I in CB? And they really have no clue. And I just go, oh my gosh, our work is, we have a lot of work to do. So I really appreciate, and I think to Harry's comment, Dana, Harry, and I, we've talked a little bit, and we're going to have a meeting actually this afternoon, hopefully, if our agenda allows, to talk about a strategy next year to be more out around California, because I do think, to your point, it's important. We just had LA City College's graduation on Tuesday, so I got in late Tuesday night with, and it was just, to Harry's point, it's so great to remember kind of why we do this, hanging out with our students, seeing them go on to four-year colleges like we want them to. And so I think it's important that we remember why we're up here, why we do what we do, and who we serve. So thank you for continuing to remind us of that. Thanks.
Thank you, Sharon. Okay, other members of the public wish to speak? Okay. Hearing none, we will adjourn the Board Governance Committee. Thank you, everyone.